Hi, I'm
Yes.
Lori from Interior Design Community for To the Trade, and I have Niall here. Hi, Niall.
Hi.
And we have Jason Levy with us, and we're very excited to talk to you, Jason. But first, why don't we start with you just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So happy Friday. Thanks for having me, everybody.
Yes.
I wish everybody a great weekend ahead. So I got into this crazy industry through my parents, who were the Kravet franchise owners in Philadelphia Metro. They ran the New Jersey market in addition to kind of a weird part of New York and Delaware and Pennsylvania. And I got into the industry. God, I don't even want to admit the year, but it's been a long time. So I started on the residential side of the business and was very laser focused on residential interior designers only. And I switched over to the commercial side in the early 2010s and got very used to the A&D world and decided to blend them both together with my own company formed during COVID. And here we are today on this great and lovely podcast. I'm very excited to be here.
Wow. Forming during COVID must not have been an easy, with all the supply chain issues. That's a strange time to start.
Very exactly. Sometimes you just gotta go with what you feel is right sometimes.
Niall is actually in your market. He's in the Philly area.
Yep.
I did not know
Yep.
that. Well, it's very nice to be a neighbor of yours, Niall.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Likewise. Likewise.
Yeah, so we were talking
Awesome.
about what makes a good rep, what makes a, bad rep earlier. So what motivated you to become an independent manufacturer's representative serving interior designers? Why interior designers?
So when I got into the industry, I was very actually intimidated by interior designers because I didn't understand their language and kind of some of the things that they were really looking at from a design school perspective. A lot of these designers are extremely educated people that are a lot smarter than me. And so when I started, they kind of gave me a little bit of the lingo that they needed to make me more valuable to them, to kind of look out, hey, this is the blue that I like, this is the velvet that I like, this is the drapery, the embroidery. And it kind of started from there. And over the years, designers have become such a passion of mine that I'm one of their biggest advocates. I really truly believe that the designer should be considered an expert on the level of a doctor, on the level of a lawyer, on the level of people who are so high regarded in the world that we live in, because every experience that we go into as an individual with our families, work, life, personal life, whatever, it's most likely the idea of a designer who actually put that all together. And over these years, I've learned that and I really appreciate what they do and how they impact my life, my family's life, and the world. And I believe that their mission is a lot greater than just being people who make things look beautiful and nice and comfortable. So they are the cream of the crop, if you ask me.
Oh my
Sold.
gosh,
I'm sold. Whatever he's selling, I'm buying.
that's what I just said. I was like, Niall is like gonna be loving you now.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, the being from this particular area, the Philadelphia, I live in the Jersey side. I'm only 20 minutes outside of Philadelphia on the Jersey side. But the schools here, the Drexel, well, it's now called Jefferson. It used to be called,
You, yeah.
Philly
Yeah.
Textile way back
Oh,
in the
that's right.
day.
Yeah.
And, just all these, obviously more at Temple and all these other architectural creations that have started here. Some of the amazing architects that founded this country that never get the credit. A lot of them are African American, actually. And a lot of these people started in Philadelphia. So I think Philadelphia does not get its props,
No.
I agree.
in my
Agreed.
opinion.
Yes. So being a solutionist, what does that mean to you? And how has that become part of your company identity?
Oh man, that is such a great question. I think nowadays with these designers being pulled so many different directions, they're like so stressed out. They can't even handle a little hiccup, let alone a big one. So what I try to do is I try to take away a lot of that stress. So these designers are focusing on a lot of the soft materials, your window treatments, your furniture, your carpet, your leather. And I just try to take all that into my own company and make it a one conversation problem instead of 20 conversations. And then I take that off of their plate, and then I'd start sending them, either if they're looking for a certain pattern, if they're looking for a certain color, I just start giving them resources, either physically, digitally, whatever they need. And then I get them continuing onto the project and staying in the profitable portion of the project versus the nitty gritty, ugly portion of the project, which really doesn't make them or their firm any money.
Right.
So that's really what I've tried to do over the years that I spent understanding, okay, they need a total package, not just two fabrics or, you know, one option. They need four options. And sometimes you just got to really think outside the box and just, go with what you feel is going to help them get to the finish line. And that's really what I've tried to do as really a solutionist.
I think that that's really smart. I mean, there are a lot of designers out there that would what you told me you do as a solutionist is very different than what I thought you would say. First of all, I want to just say that. Very
Yeah,
different
I
than what I
mean,
thought you would
listen,
say.
I'm not a designer. I always say that first before I start the conversation or my response. What I really specialize in is finding, hey, I need 100 yards of this. I need this to be there in 2 weeks. I need this. I need that. Whatever it is, I just say, okay, give it to me. Take it off your plate. I'll send you the stuff that you need, and then you can just keep on going and get to the next project.
Sure.
And you don't have to worry about so much the detail of this fabric is back ordered. It doesn't have enough stock. It doesn't have this. It doesn't have the right treatment. We need to get the right coating on it for the right, fire test. All these things that they don't really think about because they're trying to do 1,000 jobs all at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's where I felt the need really was as I'm in these meetings with these people over and over again. I'm like, wait, why are they so? Oh, yeah, that's why. So when I get to 5 or 10 minutes with these people, it's like gold because I value their time and I'm just trying my best to get it to them as fast as possible. And I literally want to be known as the fastest rep alive.
Oh my gosh. I saw that on your bio, like that you were like you work to be answering those phone calls. Are you somebody who does like answers the phone calls at night, on the weekends for these
Yes,
designers?
yes.
Oh my
Wow.
God.
One of my biggest projects that I got that I literally am still working on to this day. I answered a phone call in my office at I think it was 5:45 on a Saturday in between Christmas and New Year's. And a designer called me that was just in a frantic situation because she couldn't get a response from the initial vendor that she was reaching out to. And this project ended up becoming that response ended up giving me an opportunity to get onto a project where not only am I the carpet solution, I'm also the wallpaper solution. And the model room went so well that we're now at the phase where we're about to go into the production phase. And this is literally going to be the biggest project that I've ever worked on
Oh wow.
as a company so far. So it just by being there and being available and being responsive on a Saturday and helping the woman, even though she was from Chicago, she found my information and she just said, "Hey, I need help." I said, "Listen, I'm not sure if I can help you, but just tell me what you need and I'll figure it out for you."
Hey
And I
Niall,
got her the answer by Monday.
is this like, I mean, a dream come true? I mean, how many reps do you think that would handle anything like
No, there's not many. There's not many.
We have a meme on our Instagram that it's like, you know that song like I wish I was a baller.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I wish I was a
Oh
little bit
yeah, great
taller.
song.
We have one that says I
Low,
wish
baby.
I had
Great song.
if I called my rep they would answer the like of their phone when I call her. It's just
Yeah, it's just something that I felt, when I started in this industry, I got my start at, working, as I was a featured rep for Kravet and the Kravet family, just going through their training, their methodology of how they did business at the time. And the fact that I was following my mother, who was such an amazing legend in her own right as a rep, I had to figure out how to be, if not as good, better.
you
And the only
probably
thing that
could
I had.
implement technology in there or some of the things
Correct.
that
I
make it
brought the
faster.
technology
Yeah.
part of it to it. I was literally the guy. I will tell you a quick story. I was the guy who, in a sales meeting, Steve Jobs was literally announcing every 6 months that something was coming, something was coming. And I got the first iPhone and I was at a sales meeting and saw all the big wigs at Kravet typing on their Blackberries. And I said, in 6 months or a year, you guys are all going to have iPhones.
Yeah.
And they're laughing at me like, ha ha, ha, yeah, okay. I'm like, I swear, I promise you, how much you want to make a bet? So they said, okay, Hotshot, go up there and do a presentation on it and tell us what you do with the iPhone that you can't do with a Blackberry. I said, okay, I'll go up there. Literally, no, I had no prep, nothing. I go up in front of 250 people and I start showing them how I do the memo requests standing at the designer. This is 2007. I'm doing this,
Right.
and I'm entering the request as they're just talking to me. And I'm like, okay, here's your reference number. Bye. And I send a picture and text it to them. And they're like, everybody's watching me. They're like, who is this
Ooh,
guy? Like,
how do we do this?
who is
You're a
he?
magician.
Yes. So my angle was always technology, but it was always how can I make technology relevant to the designer?
Mm,
Right.
I didn't care so much about the technology. I wanted to make it impactful to the designer and how they did their work. And I saw little glimpses of how to do it, but speed it up to where we are now. I did It's crazy what it is now.
It is. It is. And you've said that you love what you do, but how do you translate that to your day-to-day work? How do you keep that passion when, you're probably just as overwhelmed sometimes from the rep standpoint? Certainly if this is your philosophy, I'm sure you have collected a group of interior designers who are very loyal to you. How do you keep that love
Yes.
of it when there's always sometimes things you're in the middle just like we are, where things do not always go the way you want it to go, and the manufacturer might not always honor every problem, and you handle that?
I think I look at it like what I try to put myself in the shoes of the designer at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And what I try to look at is okay, because all these designers basically have the same challenges because of the industry, right? So 30 years ago, 40 years ago, most of the furniture was made in the US. Now it's not made in the US. That's something that you had to kind of grasp over the last 10, 15 years on how to maneuver around that as a designer that you probably didn't learn in design school,
Right.
right? So guys like me, people like me, this is what we've mastered to try to really relay. If you need that product by December, you really got to order it in
yeah,
June to get it
yeah.
there. So, some of these things that the pitfalls that these designers end up getting into, I look at it like them, right? And I think, okay, not every project is going to be like that difficult of a project or that challenge on a project. And every project is different. Like every client is different. And that's the beauty of what I do. So I never get tired of the challenges of this or that or whatever because I'm doing both residential, contract, I do healthcare, I do senior living, I do hospitality. It never ends. So for somebody like me, I can go in one day and start on a hospitality project and go all the way back to a healthcare project by the end of the day. And, most people can't handle that. But going back to my training, selling as many brands as Kravet had under their umbrella at
Oh my
that time,
gosh, yeah.
and now it's even more now. You had to sell all this stuff as an individual entity. So only the really good people could really do this. And I guess my brain is just able to focus on, okay, I need to do that to this person. It's like that. It's like a graph that's going on that most people have to visualize seeing. I just have it in my brain and I'm able to just kind of follow. Plus, I use technology. I'm organized. I'm extremely haven't, I'm a huge believer of the CRM, which I was back in the early 2000s. I was pushing for it. Everybody's like, we don't need a CRM. You're crazy. And I'm like, no, trust me, you need one. And I think all those things has helped me get to where I am. And my passion will never die because when you love what you do, it's not work. It's joy. And I love watching a project get installed and seeing a picture and I'm like, "Oh my god, look at that. Look how beautiful that space is."
Right. And you must feel a little bit part of it and part of that process a little bit too when
Yeah, even if it's like
yeah.
2%, I just feel happy that I was even involved.
Yeah, I'm sure.
That's what keeps me going.
What is one of
Yep.
the projects that you're most proud of that you were part of?
I mean, I have been so blessed to be on so many great projects in my life. I really have been on just incredible projects. A recent one that I did was with a very well-known restaurateur in Philadelphia, and who was opening up a new, well, a restaurant that had a major reputation in Washington D.C. in the '60s, '50s and '60s, that they bought during COVID, that they kind of like had to put on the back burner and forget about for a while. And I was involved in that project from a furniture standpoint, where we made the custom banquettes with the custom speakers on the bottom. So all the audio was coming from like literally beneath the person as they're sitting in the booth, and it just
I love that.
immerses them as they're there. So that's one of the best, probably one of the most best projects I've done recently. But the one that I'm doing right now is going to end up being the best project I think
Right.
I've worked on in probably 20 years.
I love to hear that. I mean, it's always so exciting when you've got that pillar project that, just feels like
Yes.
it's that monster. You know what I mean? Like we all want to conquer the monster. How do you feel
So,
about that communication side of that's probably now, wouldn't you say like the hardest part between a brand designer relationship is is a steady level of communication that isn't bothersome. They're
Hmm.
very busy,
Hmm.
but isn't also is right timed. It's like they want you when they need you, but they don't want you to bother them when they're not. So it's a yin and yang mix sort of thing. It's not easy, and one move that is not necessarily you in your control could end that relationship in a heartbeat. So how do you balance that with how you communicate with designers?
it's a great question, because every firm, every designer is their own, brand, their own
Yeah.
person. And I think again, I've always been really good at three things in my life. I've always been good at remembering people's names. Like when I go to the gym, I remember every person's name, that no matter if you're 80 or if you're 8, I know everybody.
Wow.
And I've just been blessed with that since the day as for as long as I can
That's
remember.
amazing.
And I've used that to my advantage, because most people can't. Again, it goes back to the way that my brain kind of works. Does work a lot like a computer, which is frightening, with the AI technology coming. But that's the way it works for me. And I think what you have to do with designers is you have to be creative. So one of the things that I've done this summer has been, okay, everybody is so stressed out. They're all overworked. Everybody needed to take this summer and recharge, or go on a trip, spend time with their family, whatever. And what I've done this summer, instead of being annoying and trying to be in front of people and say, "Hi, can I drop something off?" or "Can I come and visit?" or "Can I do that?" which I know is super annoying to these people right now, I have gone the social media route. So I partner with a professional videographer, and he's come to my house, and we've done all these funny, crazy skits that I'm doing on social media. And we've kind of gone after the younger crowd, right? Because I'm trying to stay relevant to these people as I get older, because I have very young kids. I have Generation Alpha, I think is what it's called now at this point,
Yeah.
and six. I have two boys
That's Niles' kids.
who
Yeah.
are, yeah. So they're already like taking over the world. These kids,
Yep.
like they do stuff that I can't even
Yep.
do. But I'm trying to be relevant to those younger designers coming out of school, that are looking for, like, I'm so involved with the IIDA, the ASID, the NEWH, and all the different student events that they have, because it's at Drexel and things, because I try to be a contact for these people. I say, hey, look, connect with me on LinkedIn. I got 35,000 connections or whatever it is, because I thought LinkedIn was going to be a big thing 15 years ago. That's how, because I just thought this is going to be huge. And I didn't think it was going to be as big as it is. I'm not claiming that I'm like Nostradamus or anything. I'm just Jason. But at the end of the day, I think you kind of have to know who your audience is. So if you're dealing with a more mature designer, or a more experienced designer, use that word, then you're going to, have to kind of be more formal. Go the old school route, send cards, send samples with a box, and do something curated like that. But the younger crowd, they want something fun and funny and memorable, and that they can look at, and everybody's on their phone. And I decided if I can't beat them, I'm just going to join them. And I hate being on social media because, I don't know. I don't look like Adonis, whatever the guy's name is, the trainer guy. I'm just a regular dude, so I'm just trying to be, I'm in a predominantly female industry, and I'm trying to be funny and approachable. And the one thing that I've always used is my just, I don't know. I just think I'm generally funny, and my sense of humor is something that's opened a lot of doors for me. So I'm just going to be silly and vulnerable
Yeah.
and just put myself
I
out
think
there.
you'll find
So
that
that's what's worked for
Yeah,
me.
I was
that
gonna
will
say
work
that will
for
work. Yeah.
all designers, right? Like, not just young designers,
Mhm.
all designers really appreciate that.
Everybody.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and it's a more modern approach because that's where designers are. They do like to spend time online. I mean, we do questions of the day every day, and you will not believe how many shares we get, how many views we get. I mean, we typically get 10,000 views on every question we ever do. So that's 10,000
Crazy.
designers looking at our stuff on a regular basis every day, every single day. So, and sometimes way, way
Yep.
more than that. But I think that's a great way to communicate in a way that is like, hey, I'm here. It doesn't have to be,
Yeah.
they're gonna
And listen,
contact
I
you when
try
they
to
want you,
be
for sure.
right. And I also try to be, if I have something that might be relevant, like,
Yeah,
we have a new, USA made, machine-tufted area rug program that we've just launched with, where we can go with just one minimum rug. We don't have a giant minimum like we do with all these giant hospitality projects. And now I can really go to any designer and say, hey, if you need something, I can get you something domestically made in Georgia in 2 weeks, where everybody's going to be like 8 weeks, 10 weeks, and then they're going to have conversations about things that are not comfortable, like tariffs and other things that are out of our control, that you now have a conversation with your client that you probably didn't think about at the beginning of that relationship. So
yeah,
I'm just trying to be somebody out there looking. I put myself like this: I am an advocate for a designer. The healthier those designers are, when you can see a firm go from a small, like, crappy factory, like, warehouse office in North Philadelphia, and go from that to some pristine office in a suburb somewhere, and you can see that growth. As a person, from my perspective, it is absolutely so inspiring. It makes me want to do this job until I drop dead,
right. I
literally.
feel you because I feel like, we just interviewed a designer that I have sort of followed their career from the beginning, earlier this week, and it's lovely when you see the growth of those designers, and you feel a little bit like you're in a small way part of that growth if you've helped them, if you've nurtured them, if you've been in their corner. It's really remarkable. Do you think that there's a problem with reps in our industry, though? As in, like, I'm not wanting you to turn on your own, but I'd like to hear what your perspective is on the rep landscape in the industry for interior designers. I mean, it's a really big problem.
Yeah, I mean, look, the rep game has always been extremely challenging. It's always been, the better people were the successful ones, and the not so great ones were the ones that kind of hung on and just did enough to keep their jobs. But I think with the industry, with, just the recent last month, with, Arcom and, CF Stinson combining their companies, and now HNI and Steelcase and HNI just bought Kimball, a year ago or 2 years ago, whatever it is. So with that happening, all these consolidations happening, let's not forget Miller, Knoll, Herman Miller and Knoll. With all that happening, I think as a designer, they don't even know who their person is, maybe, at this
Yeah.
point,
They don't.
because,
They don't.
so I'm thinking, okay, how do I look? I'm never going to have the steel case airplane, and I know I'm not going to have that. But what I do have is I have authenticity. And that's what most people want right now. They want somebody who they're going to say, look, I got a problem. I need to get this. I need to find this, whatever it is. I need to value engineer this because they overspent in the construction. And now the last thing they're doing is the interior. And they cut my budget by 50%. So I need somebody to help me. And I'm the guy who says, look, I got you.
Right.
Okay. And then it's just kind of being there as that person, just being, again, there. They know I'm there and I'm not annoying them. Like, so I think some of these reps are out there and they do the rounds because they have to do that to keep their jobs,
Right.
right? Like they got to go visit that top 10 customer every month because that's what the people who are running these companies think
Right.
is going to move the needle. What they don't understand is it's actually, unless you have like some of these companies, like I see on behind the wall there, I think that's a Schumacher behind you, right? So Schumacher a couple years ago decided, and I know that company very well, that they were going to start putting out new product every month. And I thought that was genius because now as a rep, you actually really do have a real reason to be
Yeah.
there, right? Instead of you just making your rounds and, hey, how you doing? What projects you working on? And you're working on releasing product 2 or 3 times a year. That I think was genius. Like I tell Timur all the time, that was amazing.
Yeah.
And that's the guy who's running that company for 15 years. I mean, and he did not come from the design world. He's an outside, person who came into the design industry who's made a huge impact on that business. So I think that is also where the rep thing has kind of gotten disconnected from what their real purpose is, which is to provide something to these people. It's not just there to just be there. I mean, I know they take people out and they do this and they do that. And I know designers love that stuff, but designers' time is very, very limited and it's extremely valuable. And I don't want to be the person wasting that time.
Oh, I love that. And honestly, there are so many designers that, you know, the complaints I get usually are lack of communication. They may have an issue with, just not like maybe not even getting visits from because they're smaller, independent, small firm. And they're like, well, we put the order in and I feel like I've put an order in and they only really care about the stocking dealer. So, I'm left out in the cold
Sure.
when I need any help. Or, the return process, like stuff comes in, the client changes their mind, sometimes last minute. It's been sitting there for 4 months. Like, don't make the designer have to pay for that, and buy a rug for the client. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, they're an independent
Yep.
little shop, and those kinds of complaints really alienate the designer from the brand. And they don't
Sure.
necessarily really always hold that grudge against the rep, although sometimes they do. Uh, but sometimes they hold that grudge against
Definitely seen
the
that.
brand, and that's hard.
Absolutely.
That puts, I mean, you're in the middle, we're in the middle. It's not an easy place
Yeah, but
to
I think
be.
the other thing is too, when you're a big company and you're a big company rep, which I've been, right? You have a different perspective on things than what you do when you have a small business like I
Sure.
do. And I have to really make people understand like you're not just a number or a firm or some back of the burner thing. You are like the priority to Jason because every project's a priority to Jason.
Right.
That's how I've been successful.
Yeah.
I don't know any other way to do it. I mean, and if I stop doing that, people would think something's wrong
Right. Yeah.
because they're so used to how I approach everything that
I have a
I
guy
don't
I
know
work
any other way
with
to do
that
it.
calls the rep problem that they're old, pale, and stale.
Oh, jeez.
It's very true.
And I think that's, I think the way at least you're approaching it has some feeling of energy and like connection. And I think that's really super important. Now, what are some of
But
the
do you
things that
think?
you have issues with reps?
Well, no, I was gonna say, do
Excuse
you
me.
think? I don't know about issues, but I was gonna say, do you think? Because it's almost for me, it's almost. I think what brands don't realize is the reps that are in touch with me are the reps that I do business with. So, for instance, there was a brand
Hmm.
I did a lot of business with. And then there was a year where, we were in like architectural for the year for all the products so we're not purchasing anything. And so they said, "Oh, well,
Yep.
your rep is going to go away." And, because you haven't really bought anything, you can just come into the showroom. You can just be a showroom account. And I'm like, okay, but I'm not that guy. Like, I don't go into showrooms. Like, I just don't, I'm in Kennett traveling into
Do
Philly.
you have time to go to the showroom? I mean,
No,
it's
it's
crazy.
like, but then I think they figured it out. It was genius. They figured it out. And then I got what was called an emissary. And this person
Yes.
she was in the showroom 1 day a week, and 3 days a week, she was out in seeing like the smaller account, like the accounts that hadn't done a lot of business with them, but they were still important. And my business with them skyrocketed when she started coming out to see me because it wasn't that I never felt that they had quality product. I just didn't know what I didn't know. She was bringing me things. She was showing me
Mhm.
all kinds of other solutions. She was saying, you could do this. We have this. You could do that. And so it was really helpful. I think also, too, I was told a story in defense of the reps, nobody kill me, that the industry shifted. Like, I remember a rep saying to me, listen, in High Point, it used to be that people came to High Point and they just bought. Like, they would write checks, they would swipe their cards. It was like, there was no questions asked. You bought willy nilly. And he's like, and now reps are trying to get used to, you don't do that anymore. Now designers come and you kick the tires. You just come to view and you buy actually after High Point. Like, you make appointments with the
Yep.
rep after. He said, so we are trying to wrap our head. Now, granted, this was, what are we in, 2025? So this was probably about 7 years ago I had this conversation, but it was very like dumbfounding to him because he's like, we're trying to wrap our heads around this because this is not what we've been used to for the past 20, 30 years. Like, we've been used to people showing up and buying. And now they're not doing that. So I just thought that was kind of interesting, like from like almost like you say, Lori, there's always three or two ways to look at it. I think
Yeah.
as a designer, I never realized that, hey, the industry shifted and maybe that's what some reps are trying to adjust to. Like, they don't realize that, we're kicking tires and they've got to figure out how to deal with that. But for me, it's the reps that bother me. It really is the reps that bother. The squeaky oil for me. The squeaky wheel gets the oil for me. Doesn't work for every designer, but that works for me.
Doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, again, I'm sure you've had that conversation. Listen, one of the great things about salespeople, right, is your ability to listen, and if you're asking the right questions, you're going to get the right
I
answers.
think the
It's just a matter of,
yeah,
did you hear that from that
and I
person?
think the only
So
thing that I
that's what I would
yeah,
ask.
and the only thing I would say that I feel like, and I don't know if the rep is, this will be my issue with brands. I think the rep is caught between a rock and a hard place. Is that sometimes they don't understand that designers aren't. We're not the competition of a store. And I've only run into this situation where the rep has sole discretion, where a brand has said to me, listen, we are happy to work with you and open account, but it's really up to the rep's sole discretion. And I've had a rep specifically tell me no, because I am not going to put you in competition with the store. And I've had to say to that rep, then you don't understand what it is that I do. Because my client will never, ever, 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 never go into a store. They've told me that. They are not interested. They're not
Exactly.
interested in that. And the clients that are going to the stores will never, ever, never, ever hire me. So if you think that we are a competition for each other, then you're confused because my people aren't going there and their people aren't coming to me. And so I think that's probably the only issue that I've ever really had. Those reps are far and few
Hmm.
between, but I've had those issues. Yeah. Yeah. But
Sure,
you don't seem
sure.
like that kind
Yeah.
of reps.
It's interesting. No, no, but I do understand what you're talking
Yeah.
about, and I do know, and I do think that concept does make a lot of sense. And one of the biggest fears that you have as a rep is, when you have like a great year and you have a monster project come
Yeah.
in, and you go to the sales meeting, and they all say to you, "Okay, how you gonna do it again next year,
Right.
Jason?" And I'm like,
Right.
uh,
See, light
I don't
bulb.
know,
See, that's a light bulb. See, I'm glad you shared that because I don't think as designers we realize that. See, that's a light
Well,
bulb
there
moment.
you have probably quarterly, like, numbers you have to hit, you have monthly numbers you're trying to hit,
yeah,
and you're
absolutely.
I
you have an expectation of that on you, this and pressure on you to perform
to
and
perform.
to outdo yourself all the time and
And
to continually grow.
yeah,
You know, it's as similar as any publicly traded company out there. You have to do better the
Definitely.
next quarter than you did your last quarter. You have to do better in the next year than you did the last year. And that's a tremendous amount of pressure when the market is so volatile right now. So the
Exactly.
economy is
Yeah.
not working in our favor. It's not necessarily, you can't force people to buy and you can't
no,
force people to have projects and
you don't think of that
you
though
can't
as a
force people to
designer.
No,
move
and
We
you.
don't think of that because we think,
and some years, yeah, I was just gonna say some years, like what you were just saying, now was some years you're just in literally you're in full schematic
yeah,
planning. You're not buying
yeah,
anything for 6 months, a year, whatever it is. So you have as a rep, you've got to figure
yeah,
out how
yeah,
to. The problem is with the industry is you don't want to be salesy and you don't want to cross that line of, hey, I'm just trying to sell you something. That's something that I've tried my best not to do in this industry because I find that tactic to be very used car salesman style. And that's not the people we're dealing with here, right? The clients that we're dealing with. So I feel like if you massage it the right way and you approach it the right way, then yeah, it might not be that client might not have a great year in, year out, but another client might come in because you're constantly massaging.
yep,
So
that's
it goes
right.
back to that original question you asked me, Lori. Don't you ever get, where you're kind of not as enthusiastic about this being a rep? It's no, because I have to constantly think about that at the same time as what's right in front of me. That's the beauty of what I do. And, when you see these projects come to life, you're like, oh my God, I did something here. This is amazing.
Right.
Like, and you're just, it's hard to
I
explain
love
to
that you geek
people
out
the
about the
feeling you get.
projects. That is the
Yeah,
coolest thing
that is
because I
awesome.
wondered if the reps even care about the end. Like once the sale happens, is the end user, and I love that you're geeking
Oh,
out
I
about the
care
project.
deeply about it
Yeah.
because when you see something that you were involved in on a project and it's photographed and it's in a magazine somewhere, you're like, you're look, I'm not an artist. I'm not a painter. I'm not a sculptor. I can't draw anything, to be honest with you. I'm not good with my hands. I'm very good with technology and I'm good with people. Right. But, the way that I've always been able to kind of express my artistic side of my personality is through what I do with my clients. And it goes back to when I was growing up and I was very interested in the culinary world and, how all of that brought everybody together. You would see dignitaries, you'd see rock stars, you'd see artists, you'd see designers, you'd see everybody there because everybody has to eat.
Right.
And I was always enamored by that when I was little. And I thought, okay, well, as you grow as a person, everything is revolved around hospitality,
Yes.
and if you approach life, like if you're going to the best restaurant in Philadelphia or New York or wherever it is, you want to be treated like you're special because that's what half of the reason why you're going there, right?
Right.
And this the best hotel, the best, resort, whatever it is. And I feel
Unreasonable
like,
Hospitality. It's a great book. You should all
yeah,
read it.
I have that book literally
Yeah.
right here to my right. Literally, Will Godardia,
I love it.
a great book. Again, I just feel like, the hospitality, like, perspective of what we do as reps can really differentiate me versus another person. And one of the things that
Absolutely.
really has always resonated with me has been when my mother was a rep for Kravitz for about 26, something like that, 27 years. And when she passed away from ovarian cancer, she had, I think, out of all the people that came to her service to recognize her life, many, many, many of those people were her customers
Aw.
and the Kravitz family as well. So when I was a child, not a child, but I was a grown man. But when I was younger and I saw that, being in the industry, working in this industry, it really set a tone for me saying, these aren't customers. These are family, and these people really are going to be with you for as long as you're going to be in this world. So treat them right. And a guy I work for told me one time, you catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. So, and you never know who you're going to run into. So,
True.
and I literally treat, when you go, and Niall he can attest to this. When you go into a building in Philadelphia, you have the people that are kind of like checking you in, like the security people at the
Hmm.
desk. I try my best to make friends with all of those people because I watched my grandfather, who was a doc in South Philly, and he would treat the janitors, the nurse, every single person that worked in, at the time it was Methodist, every person. He knew every person's name, the parking people, everybody. And I watched him and I saw him do that. And that's how I approach everything. And that's what I do.
I love
So
Makes
that.
a
I just
difference.
think people need to do that. And it makes a
It
difference.
does.
Absolutely.
It
It
does.
does. It does.
Yeah.
Really
Yep.
does.
And
100%.
there can become such like a shortcut to their process because you know them, you know what
1000%.
they like to spec, you know what they like to, what kind of projects they do, what kind of brands they favor. How speaking of that, like how do you for we always talk like designers are so incredibly hard to forecast for. Like you just because they have a building process, because the client is dictating often what the purchase might look like. How do you
Yeah.
work on forecasting when it comes to interior designers?
Uh, I just think it's paying attention to what they're putting out. That's another thing that I do. I spend a lot of time researching. Look, if these folks are putting the effort into Instagram and LinkedIn and all these other things, and they're putting projects out there, then you need to know as a rep what they're doing. Like, I still don't understand that. If you go in and you say, "Hey, I'm selling, privacy curtains for hospitals," you're not going to want to go into a hotel at the Four Seasons and say, "Hi, how you doing?
Yeah.
Here's my privacy curtain drapery fabric I got for you." So I think just knowing that and knowing, who you're working with, what they're doing, what they work on. And some of these firms have gotten to the point where they're so, they've crossed into worlds that they don't think they've ever thought they would cross into. And I think that that's also opened up doors for people like me because I'm able to say, "Hey, look, this fabric is great in senior living, but it drapes perfect and it's meets every code for hospitality." And it can, so just knowing your product, knowing your firms, when a Gensler invites you into there, you don't walk in with stuff that they're not going to want to look at, right? You
Right.
got to know what they work on, and you got to know what Ewing Cole or whoever it is. And you just, you got to know your client, and you got to know the designer at each firm individually and then collectively, because they might individually have tastes that might not work with the firm, but you need to know because that's the stuff that they gravitate towards when you come toward the meeting, and they want that blue or they want that feel great, whatever it is. And you got to take good notes. You got to know who like this, who like that. And when you go back again, or when you talk to them again, you can say, "Hey, look, last time I was there, you love this wallpaper. Did you ever figure out a place to put it? Because I would love to see this pictured somewhere in like Architectural Digest." As soon as I say that, it's like they can visually see what I'm talking about because I can see it. I want this on their Instagram like tomorrow. I want Material Bank to feature this now. Like, what are we
Right?
doing here?
Yeah.
So I just think knowing your product and knowing your clients, knowing your territory, knowing that Philadelphia does not have the same taste as New York and vice versa.
Yeah.
Just gotta know this stuff. And North Jersey doesn't like South Jersey. And I mean, I don't know.
So what's the biggest
You just
challenge you've
gotta
ever
you just
had?
gotta really know your stuff.
What's the biggest challenge you've ever had with this being a manufacturer's rep? I mean, I would assume
Mm.
that there are a number of different challenges, especially brands and designers and forecasting and sales and all of those aspects are there. What is the biggest challenge in being a rep?
I would say the biggest challenge, because I've seen the industry changed just so much over the last, several years that I've been in the business. But some of these mills that are in the United States that are so legendary
Yeah.
that end up either closing or getting sold or they move. That's been the biggest challenge. When you have a reliable, you know, manufacturer that you're dealing with, and you as a designer are putting your client's money into this brand, right? You got to have confidence. And some of these things that have happened recently with, some of the furniture companies going out of business, but some of these companies have come back, not the same what they were, but even that challenge is something that I think is so hard to
Oh,
overcome because
yeah.
it's so out of your control.
Well,
Yeah.
I just talked to a group of designers when we were in California, and we were all talking about Perch, which is like an appliance company that a lot of designers lost a lot of money. And one designer was like, I saw it coming. I switched over to as many like orders being on my credit card as possible so that I could be protected there. And when they went out of business, like $100,000
Mm,
on his credit card that he did get back. But I know another designer that I talked to that same week lost millions. She personally lost
mm,
millions, and it's not
yeah.
covered under her insurance. She had to personally,
Yeah. That's the other thing.
yeah, she had to personally cover that. She
Yeah.
covered all her clients so that they didn't lose anything, but she was
Right. Because
operating
she would
out of
be
their,
destroyed if not.
Why?
so
But
Yeah.
she
why?
was
Why did
completely, she had to. The clients had, she didn't want to leave her clients hanging because a lot of them are repeat
She must have
clients.
not had the right insurance policy
Yeah, I was
covering,
gonna say because that's like
like accidental mistakes or
yeah,
something,
errors and
but that
omissions.
is,
Yeah.
She was tied
yeah, errors and omissions.
very
Yeah.
closely with Perch too, personally. Her business was tied very closely to theirs.
Oh, so that could, yeah, she could have been like a drop ship type of thing,
Okay, because
Yeah.
I'm
like
like,
arrangement.
yeah.
She could have been a stocking dealer or
It was
something
really rough. And,
too.
and I've
Yeah.
witnessed it happen, and it's happened a lot. In fact, I was talking to Brownlee from Curry and Co., and he is like, some of these insurance companies don't cover, like, will not cover if the brand goes out of, if the, brand goes out of
Yep.
business, and if the client order has already happened and the client's already given you money now, and then you've given that to the brand, what do you do?
But I'm not but I don't but I mean, this is a conversation for another day, but I have in my contract, but I'm not responsible for that, and it's in my
You're not.
it's in my contract, like,
Yeah.
it's sad, and I will do as much as I can and even more than I can, but I'm really not responsible for what the brand does, just like if I fumble my client's money that they give me for the brand's not responsible for that, right? So it's not like
No.
yeah, so that's strange.
Well, I
Yeah.
think some designers feel like they have to cover the client as much as possible, especially if they have a reputation in the industry. Like, it can really, if you had several different clients, like,
It's a
and their money
hard
is tied up with the
yeah,
brand,
it's
and
a
you're
hard place
like,
to
"Oh
be in.
my gosh, I'll lose every client I've ever had
Yeah,
if I
it is a
don't."
yeah, I get it. It's a hard place to be because it just takes one bad like one client saying this is what happened because Joe and Joan the Q public don't know that oh they're not supposed to be responsible. Like they don't want to hear that. All they hear is I gave my money to and now I don't have
You,
right. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly.
Money went out, nothing came in, and then it's like oh, so
yeah.
it's like yeah. I get it. I get it.
Well, I love that you operated that from a place of, or that question through from a place of empathy from the designer's perspective too. It shows that you really, really care about the designer struggle on that, because I mean, it is really hard
Mhm.
and I think it's going to get harder as
Oh God,
this,
don't say
we're going to
Definitely.
see more of that, not less, I mean, knock on
Be ready.
wood, but I don't want to see it happen any more than anyone else. But I want to make sure that, we do our best to make sure we notify designers and let them know what's the news is out there, or if there's any sort of scuttlebutt on, somebody not being like, you can just kind of tell sometimes in the forecasting if things are going sideways, like
Sure.
try to operate as a community to protect one another. Well, this has been so great, Jason. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
It's been
yeah.
really a pleasure. And we will certainly let everyone know how they can reach out to you. You seem like such a great resource for interior designers.
Yeah. And plus, and I just want to say this, like, even if you're in an area that is not specifically mine, so to
Right.
say, right? Like if you go to the, Tarquette Hospitality website, you're going to see my name on there amongst others. And if you happen to call me and you're really like in Wyoming,
Right.
I'm not going to just like leave you on an island.
Yes.
I'm going to, I'm going to say, hey, this is the person you need to contact. Here's their email. I get, I get emails from clients asking me, hey, do you know who the rep is for, this company or that company? And I'm like, I don't know who it is. And I take 5 seconds. I stop what I'm doing. I go on the website. I get the information. I send it to them because I just feel like, you know what? At the end of the day, I'm not doing this to just sell you something. Like I've said, I'm doing this because I care. I really deeply care. And when people see that, they're like, man, he is so great to work with. Let me just find a way to work with him. Like
Yeah.
seriously. And that's what people have communicated to me. That's their words, not mine.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna keep trying to pay it
Well, we're
forward
gonna make
and
sure
try to
your
help and
information's
do
on
whatever I can.
our podcast so people can reach out to you directly because that sounds like an
Thank
amazing
you.
resource.
It
Of
does. I mean,
course.
yeah,
Yeah, whatever.
that's what we
And of
love.
course now you have Niall.
Yes,
He's local.
I'm sold.
Niall, I am like, nah, we have to get together
Oh
now.
yeah,
Yeah,
So,
of
I've already
course.
listen.
you
I've
know,
already been on the website. I see you have Philly Table Company. I was looking at them, so we will be talking. We will definitely be talking.
Yay. Connections.
and you gotta go, they make everything in Jersey, so we can take you on a tour.
Yeah,
Nice.
I've been
Have you
fanboying over
have
them.
you watched
So
some stuff get
yeah,
made?
yeah, I definitely will
Yeah,
be in touch.
they make great stuff.
Yeah, I love their stuff. Yeah,
Awesome. Thank you.
yeah,
It's been wonderful. Thank you
yeah.
guys.
Well, thank you so much. Bye-bye now.